Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. And if you're a true General Hospital fan, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get started with today's video. Drew Kane, Cameron Matheson survived the lake chaos and stunned Nina Reeves, Cynthia Watros, according to a General Hospital, GH, recap from Monday, July 27th. Britt Westbourne, Kelly Thibault, also didn't tell Jason Morgan, Steve Burton about Cassius Faison's Ryan Pavey true identity before the news broke, so here's how Monday's episode unfolded. Harrison Chase, Josh Swickard, accepted that Willow Kane, Caitlin McMullen, was not in custody, but he recommended her to accompany him for questioning in Jen Sidwell's Carlo Rhoda case. Willow teared up as she requested Chase to say he couldn't find her because she was in the middle of something important. Chase refused to lie for Willow, pointing out that they'd probably send another officer to her house regardless. Willow agreed to participate in the interrogation of Dante Falconeri, Dominic Zamprogna, and Molly Lansing Davis, Kristen Vaganos, but she denied any connection to Sidwell other than meetings connected to his corporation. Willow also complained about being harassed by the PCPD and asked that any additional questioning go through her attorney. Willow's absence left Dante and Molly with the impression that she was hiding something. Valentine Cassadine, James Patrick Stewart, called Jocelyn Jacks, Eden McCoy, as a witness in Jack Brennan's, Chris McKenna, office as he brokered a deal to unfreeze his accounts in exchange for Brennan's black box. Valentine did actually pass over the package, which Brennan finally opened before revealing Drew's incriminating information. Valentine received his wish when Jocelyn certified he was now solvent. Nina panicked as she threw Drew's wheelchair into the water near the Quartermain boathouse. When Drew failed to appear, Nina dashed to Brennan's office, where she discovered he had obtained the blackmail material. Nina said it was too late because she had already killed Drew, or so she thought. After Nina described what had transpired, she requested Brennan's assistance in concealing it. Gio was surprised when he observed something in the lake while swimming. Gio had already helped Drew get to safety before Brennan and Nina arrived. Nina pretended she had left Drew to get some air and returned to find him gone, so Gio ensured he was still alive after his water tumble. While Brennan and Nina speculated about Drew's location, Willow hurried home to gather a few belongings because she still expected to board a plane with the kids. Willow saw the muddy floor and eventually looked up to see a drenched Drew standing there, enraged. Chase then met with Brook Lynn and Amanda Sutton, who discovered that he had taken Willow in for interrogation and had declined her recent offer to accompany her to a conference. At the Metro Court pool, Ava Jerome, Maura West, grilled Ethan Lovett, now Christian Howard, about the baby paternity drama before admitting she would not reveal his phony bio dad's secret. Ava felt their business was done, but Ethan stopped her and urged her to stay for another drink. Britt slapped Jason at GH to give herself an excuse to take him into an exam room, where she eventually revealed she wasn't dying and had never had Huntington's disease. Jason was relieved for Britt and questioned her about Cassius, but she only confirmed that Nathan West was not the real Nathan West, Ryan Pavey. Britt was interrupted to help deliver a baby and had to go, but Jason planned to catch up later. Britt and Jason both convinced each other that the love statements they made before he was taken into custody by WSB were genuine. According to General Hospital spoilers, Britt's secrecy about Cassius may cause problems in her relationship with Jason, so stay tuned. The episode began with the immediate aftermath of Nina's desperate act on the Quartermain boathouse dock. Moments after pushing Drew's wheelchair into the dark water of the lake, she remained paralyzed in dread, watching at the ripples that quickly settled into silence. Panic overcame her as she screamed his name, which echoed around the calm land. When there was no response and the surface remained intact, the whole weight of what she had done crashed down. She fell backward, tears spilling, and fled the scene in a frenzied haste, leaving the wharf vacant in the fading light. Meanwhile, at the WSB offices, Valentine presented Jack Brennan with a straightforward proposition. In exchange for the recovered black box, he demanded that all of his accounts be unfrozen immediately and that he have full access to his assets. Jack thoughtfully pondered the request, seeing the potential for leverage, and agreed to figure something out. Valentine produced the box and, along with Jocelyn, stood back as Jack studied its contents. Inside, Drew Kane's vital file was ready. Jack had just confirmed its presence when Nina stormed into the office, distraught. She didn't spend any time. Between weeping, she revealed everything. She had shoved Drew into the lake, assuming their advantage against him had vanished. In that moment of rage and dread for her daughter and grandkids, she snapped. She was confident she had killed him. She asked Jack to help her cover it up, claiming she couldn't face prison. Jack, surprised that she had gone so far, agreed to accompany her to the spot right away. The two hurried off, leaving Valentine and Jocelyn in the office to await word that the financial arrangements had been finished. While they waited, Valentine and Jocelyn's relationship strained. He remarked that Jack was already aware she had organized his release and questioned whether her motivations included genuine appreciation for the time he had saved her life. Jocelyn expressed gratitude, but she remained adamant about his relationship with her mother. She made it plain that her gratitude had its bounds. A message arrived, verifying that Valentine's accounts were now again free. He had the freedom to proceed as he saw fit. Brook Lynn returned to the Quartermain estate and discovered Gio in the sunroom, quietly singing to baby Phoebe while rocking her. Their talk became friendly and helpful. She made sure he didn't feel pressured by the new record contract and reminded him of the 90-day exit option. Gio assured her that he had no intention of leaving away and thanked her for watching out for him. He expressed his intention to return to Sunny's the following day and thanked her for the warm welcome. Brook Lynn advised he go for one last swim in the lake before packing. Gio agreed and went down to the water. Britt was working her shift at General Hospital when Jason entered the building. She was taken aback by his appearance. She had not expected to see him again. He asked if they could find a private place to discuss. Without warning, she slapped him hard across the face. The blow served a practical purpose. She was still on probation following her recent return and couldn't simply leave her job. She established a valid excuse to bring him into the exam room by treating him as if he had an injury. Once alone, the reunion's emotions gushed out. Jason claimed that the WSB had abruptly released him from prison in Jakarta, dropped the charges without explanation, and placed him on a flight. He had been back in Port Charles for 2 weeks, but had spent the time reuniting with Danny. Britt took in the news, disappointed that he hadn't called her sooner, but understanding his need to resolve things in person. She later revealed that she did not have Huntington's disease. Cullum falsified the diagnosis as part of a larger conspiracy. Tests had proven that she was rid of it and would survive. The knowledge provided both relief and severe remorse. She had committed heinous crimes and caused the murder of many people, including Marco, all for the sake of a lie. She expected Jason to resent her for bringing him into the horror. Jason refused to let her bear the responsibility alone. He claimed Cullum was accountable and that she did not give herself enough credit. When the subject shifted to Rocco, Britt commended Jason for his sacrifice to protect the boy. She agreed that taking Rocco with her on the run was bad, but Jason assured her she didn't have to defend herself to him. He saw her clearly and accepted her exactly as she was. A nurse intervened, directing Britt to a patient in delivery. Before leaving, she inquired if he remembered the last words she said to him before the WSB hauled him away. He remembered her saying she loved him. She confirmed that she had intended it. Jason said that he also loved her. As she stepped out to resume her responsibilities, a faint grin appeared on her face, and the small interchange marked a fragile new beginning for them. Ava and Ethan met at the Metro Court pool. The man sitting opposite from her appeared different. Dirty blonde hair, no Australian accent, but the talk remained centered on a shared secret. Ethan probed her on her recent encounter with Brook Lynn and whether she had told the truth about Phoebe's biological father. Ava had uncomfortable with keeping the knowledge hidden, but finally agreed that the less people who knew, the safer the child would be. The biological father was hazardous. Once the adoption paperwork were sealed, he would never know Phoebe's location. Ava concluded that the baby belonged just where she was, with Chase and Brook Lynn, and swore to remain silent. When she got up to leave, Ethan stopped her and invited her to stay for another drink. After a brief pause, she sat back down, the two of them lingering in the late afternoon light. Chase found Willow at the PCPD just as she was leaving her office. He informed her that she was needed for interrogation about her connections to Jen Sidwell. She urged him to say he couldn't find her, saying she was in the midst of a crisis. Chase refused to lie. He cautioned her that refusing the request would only make her look more suspect, and officers would simply come to her house later. Willow reluctantly decided to join him. Molly and Dante waited inside the interrogation room. Molly summarized what Ezra had told her. Willow had met with Sidwell several times. They wanted specifics. Willow stated that the discussions were about genuine business between Sidwell's company and Public Works in Port Charles. She denied any bribery or unethical behavior. When the questions continued, she demanded her counsel and accused them of harassment, citing previous false charges she had faced. She walked out. Dante and Molly remained convinced she was hiding something, and her refusal to reveal the frequency and purpose of those meetings only fueled their suspicions. Chase returned home with Brook Lynn and Phoebe. He explained that Anna was offering him the opportunity to become a detective again, and that he and Dante were willing to mend their professional relationship. Honoring his commitment to honesty, he also informed Brook Lynn that he had walked Willow to the station and had declined Willow's invitation to a conference in Washington. Brook Lynn was delighted that her husband continued to prioritize their marriage and family. Nina and Jack arrived at the Quartermain dock just as the recovery crew was being organized. A wet Gio approached and inquired whether they were looking for Drew. Nina hastily stated that she had left him alone for a moment to get some air and returned to find him gone. Gio explained that he observed something in the water while ready to swim and grabbed Drew out. Nina's face turned pale as she inquired about Drew's death. Gio corrected her firmly. Drew was alive and well. Willow dashed into her darkened house, phone held to her ear, arranging to pick up the children from camp soon. She hurried rapidly through the rooms, grabbing her belongings for a surprise departure. Muddy footsteps on the floor drew her attention. She knelt and examined them. The front door banged closed behind her. She turned around and froze. Drew stood in the foyer, completely soaked and fully upright. The man she and Nina had assumed was still paralyzed or drowned now stared at her with clear, determined eyes. The shock of his survival sank over the room like a heavy hush, bringing the repercussions of every previous decision slamming into the present. The afternoon sun hung low over the Quartermain estate as the events of the previous days unfolded in Port Charles, transforming calm moments into cascading catastrophes that would forever change countless lives. Nina Reeves stood motionless at the lakeside boathouse, the aftermath of an act she performed in a state of despair and desperation. Only moments before, she had unlocked Drew Kane's wheelchair wheels and pushed him into the murky water when he taunted her with the knowledge that he could now speak. The paralytic that had kept him silent and motionless had finally worn off, removing the remaining vestiges of authority she and her daughter Willow thought they had over the guy who had threatened their family. Drew's whispered remark regarding if she had received bad news served as the final spark. Nina's response, that it was awful for her but worse for him, was followed by the push, splash, and terrible silence as the chair and its passenger vanished beneath the surface. Regret overcame her almost instantly. She screamed his name, her voice cracking as she spoke into the empty air. When no response came, she stumbled away from the dock, phone in hand, her thoughts racing with the consequences. Nobody had seen what she had done. Scout and Danny had already departed for Alexis's. The grounds were calm. However, the weight of what she suspected was murder pressed down on her with crushing force. She required assistance, and the only person she trusted enough to turn to was Jack Brennan. At the WSB offices, Jack had just confirmed the contents of Valentine Cassidy's black box delivery. The Drew Kane folder was there, just as promised. Valentine's requirements were clear. Every frozen account would be fully restored, and he would have quick access to his assets. Jack agreed that they could work something out and assigned Valentine and Jocelyn Jacks to handle the paperwork. Jack gave himself a small moment of happiness when he realized he had the evidence to ultimately neutralize Drew. Then Nina came through the door, wild-eyed and panicked. She told him that it was too late. She had slain Drew. The words poured out in a flood of tears and self-recrimination. She'd snapped. She hadn't planned it, but once the chair was in the water and Drew didn't come up, the truth of what she'd done hit her like ice in the veins. Jack glanced at her, amazed that she could commit such a thing. Nina asked him to help her cover it up. She couldn't go to prison. She couldn't allow Willow and the kids to deal with the aftermath alone. Jack listened, then proceeded purposefully. A recovery team would be required, but first they must return to the scene. While they rushed to the Quartermain property, life in Port Charles continued, with its own tensions and unexpected reunions. Britt Westbourne was making a gradual return to work at General Hospital. She had been late yet again, and she was already on thin ice with administration when Jason Morgan stepped through the door. She was taken aback by his appearance. For a single second, unadulterated delight flooded her face. She had not expected to see him again. When he asked if they could go somewhere private to discuss, her countenance changed. Without warning, she slapped him hard across the face. The blow was calculated. Britt was still on probation. Walking away from her duty to chat with Jason would have jeopardized everything she had just gained back. However, treating her wounds provided her with cover. She brought him into an examination room, locked the door, and the meticulously crafted professional facade collapsed. Jason stated that the WSB had released him without warning. He was in a cell in Jakarta one day, then the charges were dropped, and he was on a plane back home. He'd been back for 2 weeks, spending time with Danny, trying to bond with his kid before confronting anyone. Britt took in the news, regretting that he hadn't contacted her sooner, but yet understanding the importance of a private reunion with Danny. She then told him her own truth. She did not have Huntington disease. Cullum had fabricated the diagnosis as part of a protracted game. Every desperate, cruel decision she'd taken to stay alive, deals, falsehoods, people she'd injured, even Marco's death, had been for naught. The weight of that understanding continued to crush her. She expected Jason to despise her for bringing him into the nightmare. Instead, he refused to let her bear the guilt alone. Cullum had organized it all. Jason recognized her as the lady who had risked her life to protect Rocco and had never given up fighting. Britt expressed gratitude for the sacrifice he had made for the boy. Jason had previously spoken with Rocco and hoped that the conversation had relieved some of the guilt the young guy was still carrying. Britt revealed she took Rocco with her when she ran, knowing it was wrong, but Jason assured her she didn't have to defend herself to him. He liked her just as she was. A nurse interrupted and summoned Britt to a delivery. Before leaving, she inquired if he remembered the last things she said to him before the agents carried him away. Jason did. She had declared she loved him. Britt confirmed that she had meant it. Jason said that he also loved her. The short interchange filled her face with a smile that lasted even as she dashed out to see the patient in childbirth. For the first time in a long time, the future seemed less like a sentence and more like an opportunity. Ava Jerome met Ethan Lovett at the Metro Court Pool, where his appearance had changed along with the actor who now played him. His Australian accent was gone, replaced with an American one, and his hair was dusty blonde. The conversation immediately became serious. Ethan was curious about what Ava had informed Brook Lynn on her most recent visit about Phoebe's true origins. Ava admitted that she felt uncomfortable keeping the secret. Ethan emphasized that the biological father was a dangerous man. The less people knew the truth, the safer everyone was. He had signed the adoption paperwork. Once the documents were sealed, that man would never find out who the child was. Ava studied him, weighed the risks, and ultimately consented. Phoebe belonged beside Chase and Brook Lynn. She would not obstruct that. Ethan stopped her as she rose to depart, claiming that their business was complete. He never indicated he wanted her out of his life. After a brief pause, Ava sat back down and accepted the offer of another drink. Willow Kane's meticulous arrangements at the PCPD began to unravel. Chase appeared at her office just as she was about to leave and informed her that she was wanted for interrogation about Jen Sidwell. Willow's eyes flooded with tears. She was in the midst of an important situation. Could he just pretend he couldn't find her? Chase declined. Lying would simply make matters worse. If she declined now, cops would eventually arrive at her home.